Whew, the Giants. Talk about a team that blew an opportunity. You could make that argument about other teams in the NFCs because the NFC least was so god-awfully bad last year. Like, you're getting to the tail end of the season and teams with 3, 4, 5 wins still have a chance to win the division. That's sad and pathetic, but absolutely was the reality for this this 4-team division. Like, it was really, really bad. And the Giants were really, really bad. Now, it wasn't all a loss. I think you potentially saw some good things out of new first-year head coach Joe Judge and make you say, hey, like, he might be decent. He might be a good coach. And then you also got a reminder of, oh, Danny Dimes is doo-doo and Dave Gettleman's a knucklehead, so how much is it really going to matter? So the good news, maybe, if you're a Giants fan, is that Joe Judge is back for year number 2. You might look at that as a positive. You might then look at it and say, oh God, it's Danny Dimes' 3rd year, and Dave Gettleman is still in charge as general manager. I will say this, in defense of Dave Gettleman, he went out there and spent some money in the offseason knowing that they needed to improve the offense. You have to give a young quarterback like Daniel Jones every opportunity you can to succeed. They go and sign Kenny Galladay. They bring in Kyle Rudolph, so you get a veteran presence at tight end to complement Evan Ingram and give you some security in case Evan Ingram gets hurt. Devontae Booker could provide some relief, backing up Saquon Barkley. Good news there for the Giants especially is you getting Saquon Barkley back from the ACL injury. A running back that you took number 2 overall that could do so many things. That was such an integral part of the offense. Like, in some ways, it's kind of hard to evaluate this Giants team because you didn't have the cog in the wheel that made everything go. You didn't have the straw that stirred the drink offensively in terms of Saquon. So how much differently can they look this year if he plays most or a full season? So that is kind of like an addition freebie. Like, he wasn't really there after the Bears game. He was gone the rest of the year with the torn ACL. If he's back and back in form, like, it changes this Giants offense and changes this Giants team a little bit. There's no question about it. But did they do enough? Did they make enough moves and enough changes for a team that really wasn't very good last year? That's a question, that's for sure. When you look to the NFL draft, Kadarius Toney was their first-round pick, the wide receiver from Florida. I will give David Gettleman credit from a Giants standpoint. He may not be the GM long enough to realize the benefit of it, but trading back from 11 to 20, you can still take a Toney and get a first and fourth-round pick in next year's draft from the Chicago Bears. That said, if a Justin Fields or a Mac Jones plays well as a rookie and Danny Dimes goes out there and does doo-doo things again, he should immediately be fired because he passed up on the opportunity to rectify his quarterback mistake. But Toney's another guy you bring into the fold, just like Kenny Galladay. You're looking to add weapons around Daniel Jones, so that way you're eliminating the excuses. How much impact Kadarius Toney will have in year 1 remains to be seen. Azeez Ojulari was a second-round pick. He's a guy that I think is even going to start year 1 at linebacker. Excited for the upside and potential and athleticism that he brings to that Giants defense. When you look at the Giants, and you're kind of already hearing me kind of negative in my tone towards this team, they deserve it, let's be clear. And a big reason for that is if you look at recent first-round pick history for this team. It predates Gettleman, obviously, but in general, it's not good. Now, you look back at 2011, Prince Amukamara. You could say, well, he was a decent player in the league, yes. But several years since he's been there. Like, you start looking at these first-round picks from 2011 to 2015 or 16 or so, these are people that should be vets that are in their mid to late 20s, maybe early-ish 30s, that are the foundation, the building block, the franchise players, the stars of your team. Amukamara is gone. David Wilson in 2012 was a bust. Justin Pugh in 2013, gone. Odell Beckham Jr., 2014, obviously he was a great first-round pick, but he's since been traded, gone. 2015, Eric Flowers, bust, gone. 2016, Eli Apple for the Giants, bust, gone. Evan Ingram's still there from 2017. He was a Pro Bowler last year, but did he really honestly deserve it? 2018, Saquon Barkley. It's funny, we used to talk about, they're going to regret passing on Sam Darnold or another quarterback. Imagine how much differently you think about this Giants organization if they had Josh Allen or even a Lamar Jackson. Like, just think about that for a second. Like, that Barkley pick looks even worse in the grand scheme of things. Understand it was hard to pass up on a generational type of running back, physical talent like Saquon Barkley, but damn, he can't play quarterback, at least as far as we know. So it doesn't really matter. Daniel Jones in 2019 has plenty of things that you point to when you say this is a bust. You know, Dexter Lawrence, okay. Baker already released. You know, last year's first-round pick, Andrew Thomas, in a draft where he had several offensive tackles go in the top 14 picks. He looks like the worst of the left tackles so far. This is not a good track record. This is not a good pattern. It's easy to understand now why the Giants have been in the shape that they're in, and they're in the shape that they're in now. Because some of these notable marquee draft picks that they had, at all varying levels of where they drafted them, have busted out. And not busted out in the positive way, busted out in terms crapped out, in terms that didn't work and aren't there anymore. How many times are you going to waste those valuable resources like first-round picks and get nothing or very little out of them? Not good at all. So when you wonder, like, why would he be so negative about him? That's one reason. That's one example. Because then you have to overcompensate in free agency. You have to overcompensate in the trade market. You have to pray to God that your day 2 and day 3 picks connect at a higher rate to overcome that. And that's just a very hard thing to do and certainly not tenable for a consistent period of time. When I look at this team, though, I look mostly on the defensive side of the ball, and I think there are some reasons to be encouraged. Like you see some positives there, although you wonder if last year they benefited a little bit from the schedule that they played and the quarterbacks that they faced in particular. But their run defense was pretty good last year. Even when they would give up some yards, like they would toughen up in the red zone so they didn't give up a ton of points, you know, which in some ways is a reflection of the incompetence at times of the offense to move the ball and get anything done. So opposing teams didn't feel pressure to be as risky, take as many chances, try and score as many points. But also sometimes it just means that their unit held up well. And then I look at Joe Judge. Like, Joe Judge did a good job in year 1. Like, how many more games were you going to win with that Giants team as it was constructed? I think he did about as good of a job as you could considering the circumstance and situation. So if I'm looking at the Giants, do I trust in Danny Dimes? Oh, God, no. Do I trust in Joe Judge? Maybe a little bit. I'm not breaking out the anointing oil for his ass just yet, but you can see some of the work that he did on the defensive side of the ball. You know, this team improved quite a bit last year in that way. But question marks abound for this team. I look at the offensive line, right? Are you going to be able to block for Daniel Jones? Are you going to be able to block and open up holes for Saquon Barkley? I look at the skill talent. Yes, you've brought in Galladay. That's great, but he only played a few games last year. You drafted Kadarius Toney in the first round, but you know, what type of impact is he going to have right away? You've still got a guy like Darius Slayton. That's nice. There's still some questions, I think, about the skill talent and specifically the depth behind the starters. But all that other bullshit doesn't matter because it comes down to Daniel Jones. Too many misses, too many turnovers, not enough big plays. You know, I look at a Daniel Jones, it's very easy after 2 years to say that he's a bust. Because if you had to tell me, right, ask me right now, I'd say, yeah, he's a bust. He's not good. But then I also think about a guy like Josh Allen that, you know, he progressed a little bit from year 1 to 2, but there's still some questions about him. And then he had a big breakout in year number 3. But there's a major difference. Like Josh Allen had elite physical tools, elite arm strength, elite big play ability as a quarterback. Daniel Jones doesn't have that. Daniel Jones is not the runner that a Josh Allen is. Like, so as much as I look at a situation like that and I say, hey, you know what? Okay, like there's still a chance with Daniel Jones. I don't feel that optimistic or positive about it. His arm strength is average. His mobility is okay. But he's too loose with the football, both in terms of fumbles and in terms of putting the ball at risk as a passer. Like, what have you seen that tells you that Danny Dimes could be the dude? I ain't seen shit. So that's going to be the big question mark that hangs over this team, similar to the Philadelphia Eagles with Jalen Hurts. Looking at the schedule, if the Giants want to have a chance, if they want to have a chance with Daniel Jones to develop, got to take advantage the first few weeks of the year. You start off with Denver at home, then you go to Washington, and you host Atlanta. If you're the Giants, you'd really like to get off to a 3-0 start there, obviously. You want to win every game. But you get what I'm saying, like realistically. Like those are 3 games you look at and say, you know, 2 home games against second, third tier opponents. with a road game against a familiar divisional opponent on the schedule, those are 3 games you could potentially get, and they're going to need to get them probably. As I look towards the end of the season, if they're still in the mix, they're going to have to face Dallas at home and then go to Philadelphia and then go to Chicago. I'd say that like it's a big deal, but it's part of that closing stretch, and then close out hosting Washington. See, 3 of your last 4 games are against divisional opponents. You're going to need to make some hay there. But, yeah, I don't know. Like, the reason that I'm putting them above the Eagles in this division, I think, just solely rests on the fact that I have more confidence in Joe Judge as a head coach than Nick Sirianni. We have a little bit of a proven track record here, at least for one season with Joe Judge, seeing some of the things he did with this team. We know nothing about what Nick Sirianni can do as a head coach. Nothing. We have no track record. I think the 2 quarterback situations are very similar. Jalen Hurts, have you really seen it? Same thing with Daniel Jones. Have you really seen it yet? Feels like 2 similar teams. Slight edge goes to the head coach here, and that's about it. But I can certainly see them finishing 4th in this division. I'm saying that they might win 6 games and finish 3rd. But yeah, like, not good. And especially if a Justin Fields or Mac Jones goes out there and has a good rookie season, Dave Gettleman's going to look like an asshat for trading out of that 11th pick.